Before these strikes, India announced a string of diplomatic measures, including suspension of the Indus Waters Treaty, the treaty which has survived 4 wars, decades of cross-border terrorism against India by Pakistan, and a long history of antagonism between the two countries, was suspended for the first time, in response to the deadly Pahalgam terror attack. On May 12th, Prime Minister Narendra Modi reiterated India's firm stance on cross-border terrorism, declaring that terror and talks cannot go together. Water and blood cannot flow together. The water and blood reference was a clear rejoinder on Pakistan's earlier threat that blood would flow if not water.
पानी और खून भी एक साथ नहीं बह सकता.
While India may have agreed to a ceasefire, the Indus Waters Treaty remains suspended. The Pakistan Prime Minister's office condemned the move as an act of war and announced a series of retaliatory diplomatic measures as well. It suspended bilateral pacts with India, including the Simla Agreement, which validates the line of control. The landmark 1960 treaty, brokered by the World Bank, governs the sharing of water from the Indus River system between the two countries. Under the treaty, India was granted unrestricted rights over the 3 eastern rivers, Ravi, Beas and Sutlej. While Pakistan was given exclusive control over the 3 western rivers, Indus, Jhelum and Chenab. At the same time, the treaty allows each country certain waters of the rivers allocated to the other. The treaty gives India 20% of the water from the Indus River system and the rest 80% to Pakistan. So although the western rivers are allocated to Pakistan, India retains limited rights to use its waters for non-consumptive purposes, including domestic use, irrigation and hydroelectric power generation.
The purpose behind the treaty was essentially to take the management of these rivers, and there are 6 river tributaries of the Indus River Basin, which are essentially being divided between both countries under the terms of the treaty. But the idea was to take the management of these rivers out of the hands of politicians and put it into the hands of technocrats and bureaucrats, so that whatever frictions happen, political or geopolitical frictions between both countries, the treaty would continue to hold in place. And that's what's essentially been the case. So the treaty has withstood previous conflicts between both countries. Both countries went to war in 1965, 1971, 1999, and there have been subsequent frictions over the last 2 decades. But the treaty is held in place. So the idea was to essentially depoliticize the management of these waters.
The 2 hydroelectric projects in Jammu and Kashmir have been a bone of contention between India and Pakistan for years now. In January 2023, New Delhi issued a notice to Islamabad seeking modification of the treaty. This was the first such notice in more than 6 decades of the treaty's existence. In September 2024, India sent another notice to Pakistan on this matter. Pakistan has reportedly objected to the design features of the 2 hydroelectric projects, saying they violate the treaty. On May 13th, the Ministry of External Affairs said that the Indus Waters Treaty will remain suspended until Pakistan aborts its support for terrorism.
As per CC's decision that I referred to of 23rd April, India will keep the treaty in abeyance until Pakistan credibly and irrevocably abjures its support for cross-border terrorism.
And India will continue to employ non-kinetic measures such as diplomatic and economic actions to pressure Pakistan. On the 13th of May, 3 Lashkar-e-Taiba terrorists were killed in an encounter with the armed forces. In the Keller forest area of Jammu and Kashmir's Shopian, the Indian Army launched a search and destroy operation after receiving specific inputs about the presence of terrorists. The encounter comes a day after Prime Minister Narendra Modi promised counter-strikes as a response to terror, without differentiating between terrorists and the regime that also sponsors them.
The arms and ammunition included AK-47 rifles, magazines, grenades, wireless sets and other ammunition which was recovered from the possession of the 3 terrorists who were killed yesterday in the Shopian district. One of the terrorists was wanted from last 2 years and was a top commander of Lashkar-e-Toiba. The other 2 were also involved in the civilians, especially the non-local laborers who were killed in the southern part of Kashmir. Security forces have called it a massive success and said they were on a lookout for these terrorists for quite some time. On the other hand, there are posters of 4 terrorists involved in the Pahalgam attack which have been put up all across the Shopian district with a reward money of 20 lakh. If at all anybody gives information, his identity will be kept a secret. There are multiple combing operations that are still continuing in the forest area of Pahalgam and Anantnag district. Security forces are still carrying out those combing operations at multiple locations across South Kashmir to look for the terrorists involved in the Pahalgam attack.
Operation Sindoor is not just a one-time operation. It signals a decisive shift in India's strategic approach against terrorism. As India continues its hunt for Pahalgam attack perpetrators, it aims to ensure that Pakistan and the terrorist groups that it nurtures receive the message, loud and clear, that India will respond if India and its people are targeted. And this is India's new normal.